Okay, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another CYPRX video breakdown. In today's video, we're going to be going down the rabbit hole discussing some of the things that happened in Ohio just a couple of days ago. I'm going to be piecing together parts of the puzzle for you all, showing you all how a financial firm, in my personal opinion, is either connected directly or indirectly to what just recently happened in Ohio via this major chemical spill. If topics like this intrigue you, we ask that you all do us a favor and smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. One more thing that we ask is that you take it upon yourself to subscribe to all of our platforms, both the Rumble and the YouTube channel. With that being said, sit back, relax, enjoy this video breakdown. And as always, be cognizant, be aware, and I will see you all in the next video breakdown.
Sparked my interest. I wasn't going to open the rabbit hole to this, but when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, there's got to be something going on behind this. So I kept on digging. Okay, so before we start this conversation, I just want to full circle this by saying that what I'm about to piece together, in a way, cannot be proven, and I'm not litigating anything. I'm not, at the end of the day, this is me piecing parts of the puzzle together, and I want you all to take it upon yourself to kind of do your own research. This is my perspective on it. I'm not saying that this is true or not true, but this is just the devil being in the detail. So we're going to talk about this East Palestine, Ohio, undergoing an ecological disaster. This was presented to us in the community by Khalid. So shout out to you for allowing me to go down this rabbit hole. So you all know how my brain works. I'm always piecing together how financial institutions in some way, shape, or form, whether that be in the United States, in Europe, or in the United Kingdom, or in Asia, whatever the case may be, are involved in what's going on in the world somehow, shape, or form financially. So to fast forward towards the end of this, because it's only going to make sense if I say this, it's going to full circle to show you all how, in my perspective, this is an attack on Vanguard, because of something that they did and announced to the world in December, which was they came out and announced, and we'll get to this fundamental here in just a second. But on Reuters, it came out, they announced that they were leaving this net zero emissions initiative that was put together by all these major institutions. So this came out December 7th, 2022. Vanguard quits net zero climate efforts, citing a need for independence. So I'm going to full circle this and show you how I believe, again, that this is a war on green energy and the digital transformation, everything that's happening surrounding solar power, transitioning to, this net zero green climate initiative, right? And Vanguard pretty much crapped on the elites. They pretty much said, like, we're not going to go through with what you guys are doing with this whole net zero climate, and they pulled out from this deal. So we'll get to this piece in just 1 second, and I'm going to show you how I think that it was an attack on Vanguard, because they are the key owners of everything. Like, I'm about to blow y'all's mind. So, like I said, this all came about when Khalid and the group sent this message talking about what's going on in East Ohio. So East Ohio is undergoing an ecological disaster because authorities blew up the train derailment, cars carrying hazardous chemicals, and press are being arrested for trying to tell the story. So we're going to go down the rabbit hole on what's going on. This happened a couple of days ago. This was not recent. Okay, so this happened just a couple of days ago. However, there were some recent car derails. And again, we don't believe in coincidences here at CYPRX. There's something always being manipulated behind the scenes that we don't get to see on the opposite side. And I'm going to show you that here. Okay, I'm just telling you, it cannot be a coincidence. If it is, then what a freaking coincidence this is, right? So it says, not a single story on CNN's homepage, not a mention on Drudge. Journalists are getting arrested for investigating the Ohio train explosion, and animals are dropping dead miles away. What the heck is going on? Here's an interesting picture of the plummeting black soot debris from that burning this chemical, which is called, give me 1 second so I don't sound ignorant, vinyl chloride. Okay, we're just going to call it PVC, if I'm not mistaken. That's the abbreviation for it. So as we go on, first, let's talk about in detail what happened. Ohio catastrophes, a wake-up call, dangers of deadly train derailments. Now, why am I going to read this to you? It's going to be interesting talking about the key vocabulary here. 5 days after a train carrying vinyl chloride derailed and exploded near the Ohio-Pennsylvania border, crews ignited and controlled burn of toxic chemicals to prevent a much more dangerous explosion. Thousands of East Palestinians and a town of about 5,000 people evacuated, and officials warned the controlled burn would create a, I'm not going to butcher that word, something hydrogen and hydrogen chloride plum across the region, which was that picture I showed you all. And it is highly toxic, a gas that can cause vomiting and breathing trouble, and was used as a weapon in the First World War. Now, this is where the part of the article gets interesting. It says right here by one of the workers that was cleaning up the wreck, it says, if something is not done, then it is going to get worse. And the next train derailment could be cataclysmic. That's the word that he used. That's what sparked my interest. I wasn't going to open the rabbit hole to this, but when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, there's got to be something going on behind this. So I kept on digging. About 4.5 million tons of toxic chemicals are shipped by rail each year, and an average of 12,000 rail cars carrying hazardous materials pass through cities and towns each day. All right. So just to give you guys an awareness of what's going on. So now this is where we're going to open up the rabbit hole. So I clicked on this article and it says what we know about the Ohio train derailment. Come to find out, remember I mentioned to you all the Vanguard group at the beginning of this, right? So this is where we're going to start to go down the rabbit hole of the Vanguard group. It says a 150 car Norfolk Southern freight train, so that was the company carrying this hazard chemical and other materials, derailed in the town of East Palestine, Ohio. So that's specifically talking about where and when this happened on February 3rd and what company it was. So how we operate here at CYPRX is we pay attention to detail. We're going to be paying attention to the train companies, and we're going to be paying attention to the vinyl chloride companies. Okay. So who is, let's go over here. Who is the biggest owner of shares of Norfolk and Southern Railroad Company? Well, it's the Vanguard Group, right? They own 17 million shares of this Norfolk Southern Corporation Railroad Company, okay? Which again was the company that was housing these chemicals of this train derailment in Ohio, all right? So that's just one incident. We can't say that it's not a coincidence there. Right now, it's still a coincidence, okay? But let me dig further for you. So as I got to digging, we come over here to Instagram, and I don't have an Instagram. However, Khalid shared this in the group again, so shout out to you, appreciate it. Breaking: emergency crews respond to deadly train derailment near Houston. Officials are now responding to another deadly train derailment near Houston, Texas. Over 16 rail cars carrying hazardous materials crashed upon, prompting Union Pacific and blah, and it goes on to say, okay? With that being said, I went to research further on this Houston crash. Come to find out there was an even another crash in South Carolina. So there were 2 consecutive crashes back to back after the Ohio chemical spill. Here's an article about it. It says, 2 more trains derail weeks after Ohio chemical spill. And again, remember, the brain juices are flowing. We're not focused on this chemical spill. That's a distraction for the general public. We're focused on the companies and what these companies and these trains were housing, which is the chemicals, okay, and the chemical companies that are associated with these chemicals, okay? So here we see, nearly 2 weeks after Ohio train derailment resulted in a dangerous chemical being released into the air, 2 more trains derailed back to back on Monday. Again, this is now 3 scenarios. Once you make a third, it cannot be a coincidence, which is why I dug so deep into this. On Monday morning, Montgomery County, Texas emergency crews responded to a train derailment. And it goes on to say, it talks about how many people were killed and da-da-da-da. We're not going to focus on that because that's devastating. Obviously, of course, you know, our heart goes out to those individuals negatively affected. It goes on to say right here, later in the day, Honoree, South Carolina, a train derailed just after 4 p.m. and emergency crews and CSX Transportation, the company that operates the railroad, are on the scene investigating. So again, we have the name of the railroad company whom were housing these chemical materials. Do you think it's a coincidence what I'm about to show you, that Vanguard is the biggest stockholder or shareholder of the CSX group? Well, here it is right here. They own 174 million shares, right? So if you're not too familiar with the United States companies involved in the production of vinyl chloride in the United States, let me just name a couple for you. We have Westlake Chemical, LyondellBasell, Dow Chemical, ExxonMobil Chemical, Eastman Chemical Company, Huntsman Corporation, Formosa Plastics, Shintech, Chem One, and Accidental Chemical Corporation are the top 10 biggest USA-based company productions of vinyl chloride. Do you think it's a coincidence what I'm about to show you again? That in some way, shape, or form, Vanguard is one of the top, if not the top, one of the top shareholders of each and every single one of these chemical corporations. Here's Westlake Corporation. And if you scroll down here on marketscreener.com, you guys can go ahead and see that the Vanguard Group is the top shareholder, right? Coming over here, just to fly down the list. Next, we have LyondellBasell Industries. Scroll down here. Who's the top shareholder? The Vanguard Group. Again, remember, these are the companies of the top producing vinyl chloride in the United States, okay? And Vanguard is the number one. I'm just going to fly through them to save time. Here's the Dow, Vanguard, top one. Coming over here, ExxonMobil Corporation, Vanguard. Eastman Chemical, Vanguard. Huntsman Corporation, Vanguard. Like, you cannot make this up, okay? So I feel like you guys get the picture. To save time, I'll skip the last four. Which one is this one? Formosa Plastics Corporation, scrolling down here. Vanguard, see them right here, right? 120 million shares. Okay, so now this is gonna full circle. Here's proof that the stocks go down in value when something like this happens. So here's an article just to prove that thesis. It says Norfolk Southern stock slips amid Ohio chemical spill. Remember I said at the very beginning of this how I feel like it's an attack on Vanguard because of what they did to all the institutions in December of last year, right? Remember, there's something always going on behind the scenes. There's a financial war that nobody talks about and discusses, that's not talked about or broadcasted in the mainstream, that us as retail investors can't see because it's literally billions, millions, and trillions of dollars, okay? This came out December 7, 2022. Now to go into detail on this, the full circle. Vanguard quits net zero climate effort, citing need for independence. Why do you think Vanguard quit this net zero carbon, blah, 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 whatever? Because not only are they shareholders and the biggest shareholders of each and every single one of those chemical corporations, but they're also the biggest shareholders of the top 10 gas companies in the United States. ExxonMobil, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, Phillips 66, Valero Energy, EOG Resources, Accidental Petroleum, Devon Energy, Marathon Oil. Guess what? Vanguard is the top owner in all of them, right? Vanguard right here. What do we see? Chevron Corporation. Coming over here. Owner of 66 Phillips. Who do we see? Vanguard. Who do we see right here? Valero Energy Corporation. Vanguard. Like, I don't need to keep proving this to people. This is nuts. No? It's kind of crazy, right? So going back to this, now let's just finish this off because this is mind-blowing. And like I said, it's just like, at the end of the day, we can't do anything about it, right? Except just be aware of the manipulation behind the scenes so that maybe eventually down the line, you know, it clicks for you and you avoid some type of scam or you avoid some type of investment thing or something happens and you're just like, dang, you know what? I'm so happy that I'm awake and aware. That's what this information can do to you, is just open you up to what's really going on behind the scenes to show you that there's a red curtain and in front of that red curtain is the manipulated sheep. And behind that red curtain is the devil. I mean, he is jacked up, he or she, or whatever it is that you want to classify the devil as. So Vanguard quits net zero climate effort, citing a need for independence, right? So this is what happened back in December. Vanguard Group Inc. is pulling out of a major investment industry initiative on tackling climate change. The world's biggest mutual fund manager said on Wednesday, explaining it wants to demonstrate independence and clarify its views for investors. Then it goes on to say who these investors are, and it talks about the deal. The Net Zero Asset Managers Initiative launched in late 2020 to encourage funds firms to reach net zero emissions targets by 2050. And it goes on to talk about how much money is involved in this, right? So think about this just for a second. All the biggest fund managers, the fund firms, right, are attempting to transition to this net zero initiative, and one fund messes it up for all of them, right? Because if you noticed on all of the list of individuals that I showed you that are the biggest shareholders for each and every single one of these chemical and gas companies, well, we also see some of the other biggest fund managers, BlackRock and Fidelity, who all signed this net zero initiative. So they're all willing and ready to transition to this new, quote unquote, green net zero carbon economy, right? But Vanguard was not. They stood up and they said, nah, 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 we're not about that. We're already with the money that we're already making from all this messed up gas crap. Why would we want to transition over to what y'all are doing? This is nuts. I mean, it's trillions of dollars. I believe right now it says US dollars, $59 trillion in assets under management, 301 signatures on this. And if you go back to the previous article where it talks about Vanguard not signing, well, it was at 66 trillion. But when Vanguard decided not to sign, it went down $7 trillion, right? That's massive. That's a lot of money. Okay. So I believe, again, this is just a theory. If you look at the companies that this accident happened to, okay, you have Norfolk and you have the CSX company. Those were the trains that were involved in this chemical spill. Not only does Vanguard own all of the chemical companies, but they also own the biggest shares in the train companies. And you saw the article that says that the Norfolk stock slipped as this Ohio thing unfolded. So they were taking some type of financial hit, Vanguard was, because they are the biggest shareholders and the stock went down. Again, a hidden financial war that none of us can see that's going on behind the scenes. There's always a bigger perspective in theory to what's going on. This is just my perspective on it. You all can obviously, of course, if you want to dig further, be my guest. This is me just putting, with my financial knowledge and who's really manipulating the markets behind the scenes. This is me piecing that all together for you all. So